Welcome to the Eutaw Street Banter podcast.
What's up, everyone? It's another episode here on the Eutaw Street Banter podcast. I'm Elisha, and today I am here with Greg. How are you doing, man?
I am great. How are you?
I'm doing good, just making another day here on campus, just trying to stay alive, stay passing, and make it home in the summer.
Exactly.
That's how I roll. I in high school, you strive for your best because you got to get into a college with good grades, and then immediately after graduation, my mom just said C's get degrees, and they sure do.
You're 100% right.
That's how if you're listening, I don't have C's. I have all A's and B's. I don't even know if I have B's. I have at least A's, but I'm doing good. I have to get enough grades so I keep some of my scholarships. If I start doing too bad, I'll start losing money. That's when we start getting real bad.
Yeah, you don't want to do that.
No, I don't need to pay anymore. They already steal enough money from me.
Exactly.
But yeah, this week it's been an interesting week in baseball. There's been some good prospect stuff, some interesting Tokyo Series games, and that's coming up, and we got some great Orioles stuff to talk about. But to start off, we'll go over some stuff that's happening around the league. Speaking of, baseball starts this week. We got regular season games getting played all the way over in Tokyo, Japan, between the Dodgers and the Cubs. And some news came out about that recently, and Mookie Betts is not going to be playing. It seemed like he is down with an injury or illness, but it is a little concerning because I saw someone say he's dropped over 15 pounds through this illness, which is that's always concerning. I know someone said it perfectly. He's 32 and not getting any younger, and that's a lot of muscle that you're losing. That could really set him back a few weeks. And it's going to be an interesting one to see how the Dodgers fare. I think they'll probably still do pretty good because it's the Dodgers and they have depth everywhere. But it's going to be interesting. And then there's this one player for the Brewers. He's a minor leaguer. His name is Jesus Mate. And I want you guys, do you know how old this kid is?
No, I don't.
So he is currently 2 years younger than me. He is 17. And he's only had 2 at-bats in regular spring training. But he played in the Spring Breakout Game for the Brewers. He got a base hit. And last year in rookie ball, he actually had batted .331 with a 1.012 OPS.
Lord.
So he was killing it there. And he looks like another great young prospect for the Brewers that they're just churning out. And I think it's just, I guess I'm already starting to get to the point. I know I talk to Cody and mess with him all the time about it, how there's less and less players that are older than him. Well, now I'm older than some of the players, which just doesn't seem right. But an interesting thing that I found out this past week is that the Yankees, for opening day, they're having Carlos Rodon start. And their big signing for free agency, Max Fried, he is not going to be starting opening day. And it's kind of interesting. With the Garrett Cole injury, Luis Gil's out. I mean, if you had asked me a month ago who I thought was going to be starting opening day for the Yankees, Rodon was probably my 4th pick. So it's real interesting to see the move there. Aaron Boone's always making interesting choices over at the helm of the Yankees. And then I have some real positive stuff here. And this is a really one that I enjoy talking about. It's Trey Mancini. I don't know if you guys know. He is killing it right now in spring training. In 23 at-bats, he is batting a .435 with a 1.132 OPS. Has a home run, which was a walk-off home run, actually. And he hasn't played Major League Baseball since 2023. And I think it's a great shot for him. He has a really good shot at making the Diamondbacks opening day roster. Because I'm looking at their depth chart. They lost Christian Walker in the offseason, but they traded for Josh Naylor. But it's kind of a toss-up right now for the backup first baseman role in a corner outfield spot between him and Pavin Smith. So it's going to be interesting to see if he can really put it together here as of late and if the Diamondbacks choose him. But I think he has a good shot of breaking the roster. And if he can put something together, I mean, that's a guy I will always root for.
Yeah, he was you got to root for him. I mean, no matter what, and he would have hung around in baseball. He just couldn't hit with the Cubs. He just couldn't hit.
Yeah, he did struggle that year. I mean, that's why I know it was hard, obviously, rooting for the Astros when he was with them in the World Series. But I looked at it. I was rooting for Trey Mancini to get a ring. I love that he got a ring. He got to play in the World Series. I mean, that's everyone's dream. He killed it with the Orioles, went off, got a ring, and if he can make a comeback, I'm all for it, especially with a good team like the Diamondbacks. And then I believe you both have some trivia for us.
Yeah, the first my trivia is when was the last time the Orioles made 3 straight postseasons?
3 straight. It feels like never, probably. Now with how our postseason luck is, it's probably when we were the St. Louis Browns.
No, not quite that long ago. It was in 69, 70, and 71. 3 straight appearances in the World Series. They won in 1970 and they lost 69 and 71. So it's been quite a while that it's the only time they've ever went 3 straight. This year they're trying to make it their second time. So it'll be interesting to see if they can make it happen.
Yeah. But we can move on straight from here into our next segment. It's going to be all about the Spring Breakout series, where the Orioles took on the Yankees for our game. Of course, it happened all across Major League Baseball with a whole bunch of different prospects. But some of the prospects that put on a show for us are Enrique Bradfield and Vance Honeycutt. Now, I don't know if you guys watched it. I actually didn't get a chance to watch it, but I saw some of the highlights, some of the stats from it. And it was really cool seeing Vance Honeycutt, our number 1 draft pick from this past year. He actually got an inside the park run. And Enrique Bradfield also shown off his wheels, and he had a couple stolen bases. Believe he got stole home at one point. So it's really nice seeing our young prospects really get a shot to wait.
Yeah, Bradfield, he's probably another 2 years away. But
yeah,
it could be faster than what we realize. A lot has to depend on how Mullins does this year, and are they willing to kind of rush him to the major leagues. They've not been willing to rush anybody to the major leagues except kind of they rushed Holiday a little bit last year, but that's about it.
Yeah. Health is always the big key. I mean, if someone goes down and they bring him up here, I think ever since he got drafted, his speed and glove were already MLB ready. It's more his bat, which his bat's definitely coming along. I mean, he's excelled, I think, through the minor leagues up through single and double A, and it's going to be great to see what he can do. I hope he comes up soon, and Mullins' contract's coming up shortly, and if we don't extend him, I mean, I think this is a perfect Mullins replacement. But
make magic happen with Emily at Blue Crab Travel, your Disney vacation expert. Ready to experience the wonder of Disney? Let her help you plan the ultimate Disney getaway. Whether you're heading to Disneyland, Walt Disney World, or a Disney cruise, she has you covered. Emily can take care of custom Disney itineraries, tailored to your family's needs and preferences. She also can help find you exclusive discounts on Disney hotels, tickets, and packages. Imagine a stress-free vacation with hassle-free booking for accommodations, dining reservations, and fast passes. From character meet and greets to thrilling rides, Emily will make sure every moment is unforgettable. Email Emily Jones today at emilyjones@bluecrabtravel.com to start planning your dream Disney vacation.
Placement. But there's something that's happening in a week and a half. I don't know if you guys are aware, but opening day's coming up. And for opening day, everyone's got to get their roster set. So we all actually have our own section of the roster that we kind of took over and played around with to see who we think's going to fill in each spot. And I'll start us off. I did the position players, and I really think most of these spots are kind of solid at the moment, unless there's an injury or something crazy happens. I think it's pretty much going to shake down this way. It might change up, though. So for me, start out with catchers. I think it's pretty clear. It's going to be Adley Rutschman and Gary Sanchez. No one's got to really even got to question that. I mean, Adley's obviously going to be there. Gary's the backup. And until Samuel Basayo's ready, Gary's going to be there. And then same with first base. It's going to be Ryan Mountcastle, Ryan O'Hearn, the 2 Ryans. They're well stuck in, and I don't see a way that either one of them leave this team without a trade, because I've been saying for a while I thought they were going to get traded. I was kind of hoping one of them would get traded. We have 2 great first basemen, and we need pitching, and that's a team like the Seattle Mariners needs offense, and I really thought we could have worked a trade together with them. But moving on, second base, our only second baseman on the roster will be Jackson Holiday. Then we'll have Jordan Westberg for third base, Gunnar Henderson at short, obviously. And then our last infielder is going to be Ramon Urias. And I believe he's going to slide in there. He can play third and first and second. So he's going to be our utility guy. And really, on any given day, he could take over for Westberg. He could take over for Holiday. He could take over for Mountcastle or O'Hearn if possible. And if for some reason Gunnar needs a day off, you got Westberg or Holiday. Most likely Holiday, though, could play short. So I think it's going to be really interesting. A guy that I would prefer to have there over Urias would be Jorge Mateo. But Mateo's still injured from last year when he messed up his elbow colliding with Jordan Westberg. So we'll see what really shakes up here if Mateo comes back sooner than expected, I would have to imagine he would come up and take Urias' place. But Urias is going to be here. Really, the only person I think could pressure him out of it is going to be Kobe Mayo, who I don't have cracking the roster. But moving on to outfield, I have Colton Cowser, Cedric Mullins, Heston Kjerstad, Tyler O'Neill, and Ramon Laureano. You're going to have Mullins play center field pretty much every day. Cowser taking a few times off of him. Kjerstad's going to be more of a platoon bat, I feel like, with O'Neill taking the major share of right field. And Laureano, he's an interesting one. I love his bat against lefties. He has a lot to be desired in some of his offense. But, I mean, he's above league average. We signed him for a reason, and we need him to play some defense. And I think he used to be a great defender, not quite as good. He has a cannon of an arm, though. And, I mean, we really just got to see how this kind of shakes out. And I think if Gunnar starts the season hurt, he still is currently hurt, he's not playing, but he did come out and say the other day he's ready to play for opening day. So if that's the case, if he isn't ready, I think you'll have Jackson go to short. Westy's going to move to second. Mayo will play third. Or Urias will play third, and you'll see Mayo kind of take over that.
How long before Mateo is going to be ready? Have they said?
I don't know if they know exactly. I think it's kind of like midsummer.
Okay, because I know Hyde loves Mateo. And his versatility. Because I mean, he really could take the extra outfield spot if you were looking for it.
Oh yeah, 100%. Like if you needed a series or something like that where you need to say we only want 4 outfielders, send up Mateo, take Urias down, take an outfielder down, send up another pitcher.
Oh yeah,
it's very easy. Like I think he provides a sense of stability to a lineup that you kind of need. You need a guy that can play. I mean, Urias and Westberg are kind of the only guys that can play more than like 2 positions on this team. I guess you can count O'Hearn can play a corner outfield spot, but it's really important to have those guys because, I mean, you take Mateo, he can play second base, third base. I feel comfortable with him at third. He can play center field. He can play left and right. I mean, he even got some reps at center field last year, and I think he did rather good out there. And he 100%, I don't foresee us going to the playoffs without, like, he's going to be on our playoff roster if we make it. He's going to be on the roster towards then. And if Ramon Urias does get traded, that's an easy fit. Or if they decide to just move away from Laureano and have up still and have Teo and Mateo play even more outfield than he has before. I think it's really realistic. And I think it's going to be interesting that's how I believe it shakes out. I mean, if you guys have anything else to say about it, I really don't see too much flexibility in other than that at maybe last infield spot or last
I think long term, I think Mateo ends up because he gives them the speed and the flexibility to play infield, outfield. He can bunt. He can do. He's not a great hitter. He's a streaky hitter. Really coming off the bench, you have enough righties that you can bring in. But because Sanchez, I think, is going to get a lot of DH at bats possibly this year, especially if he's hitting. But now I kind of like where they're at because, like you said, they do have the flexibility with Holiday, or with Holiday can play some different positions, but Westberg gives them the ultimate flexibility. So,
no, I agree with you saying that Sanchez is going to get a lot of DH. I think there's going to be a lot of days that if you have a lefty pitcher, you're going to have Adley or Gary catching and the other one being DH. Mounty's going to be playing first, and you might even see an Urias instead of Holiday. And then you take O'Neill and Laureano, put him in the outfield, Mullins, and that you kind of roll with that sometimes. I think there's enough flexibility with the way that I have it that you can play around with platooning guys versus lefties and righties. But it's going to be interesting because we do have so many prospects really pushing at the door. What do we do with Sanchez if Basayo soars through and by June he's ready?
Right
I don't know
now,
the answer is really.
If they were the say Florida Marlins, Basayo would be up. He would be up. I think that's the big issue the Orioles have with. I mean, he's lit it up in spring training. He's looked very good. But he's a kid you don't want to rush. I'd be exciting to see, but it's the same thing. I go back to a Kjerstad or a Mayo or any of those. Where are the at-bats coming? Because you don't bring a kid up unless you can get them the amount of at-bats that they need.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I do agree because if you had told me, say, 4 months ago that we're going to just stick with Basayo as our backup catcher, and we'll get him some DH reps, and that's kind of our play. I don't think
Yeah.
I wouldn't have thought he was ready. And I wouldn't have agreed with that. But how he's played this spring and how he's dealt with kind of all the pressure of him being the next guy, I would be content now if we were just to run with him instead of Sanchez. But we've got Sanchez. I think it's important for Messiah to kind of take it easy. We see what happens. He is still really young, and we're so used, I think, to prospects coming up and stinking for a month before they finally click. And if we could skip that with Basayo by keeping him down an extra month or two, we don't need him. Like, it's not a thing, we don't have Adley Rutschman and we need that star catcher. We already have that. He would just complement this already great offense, and I think we're already going to have possibly a top 5 offense in the league. And if you can just add on to that and just give a productive bat off the bench and a back catcher,
I agree with you. I think that's where you have to be very, you have to watch out for the young ones like that. So yeah, I agree.
Yeah. And then moving on for the starting rotation, I went over. We got Zach Eflin, our opening day starter. That's already been announced. Charlie Morton slotting in behind him. Tomoyuki Sugano, Dean Kramer, and then I think it's going to be Cade Povich behind Dean Kramer.
I agree. I think it's going to be Povich. Povich hasn't worked out of the bullpen before, or if he has, it's been limited. And, Suarez gives them the guy that swing that can go between the bullpen, get the extra start. I think that's the way it's going to end up. And Povich has been really good this spring. So, and
yes, yeah, he had his one bad game, I think, like his most recent start or something like that. He did kind of stink it up, but besides that, he's been really locked down. And I mean, if I'm going off of how I feel about him from spring training, I love this rotation. They're actually doing really good right now. And obviously, with the loss of Grayson, it sucks. We just can't afford any.
You can't afford injuries. I mean, and really, you're just biding time till you hopefully can get healthy. But Povich also gives them a lefty in the rotation. I think you need that mix because it allows it makes teams set up different against you, their lineup. So other than that, I like the rotation is interesting. I think Eflin is going to give you pretty solid innings, barring an injury, no injuries or anything. Morton's the interesting one. I think Morton is the key. If he's the Morton he was 2 years ago, he could be really, really big for you guys. But like I said, when you bank on these older pitchers, injuries is always your biggest concern.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. And that's how I'm kind of going into this season, and I'm looking at Morton and Sugano. They're on the older end. Sugano's never pitched in Major League Baseball before, and I would consider it a success if just one of the two of them this year.
Yeah, I agree. I think Sugano is going to be really good the first 2 months. And then how is he going to adjust to the AL East the second half of the season? Yes, exactly.
Once they've seen one. Yeah, I think it's going to be really interesting just how it is. I mean, luckily, like Dean Kramer, we know what we're going to get with Dean Kramer. When Dean Kramer's good, he's good. And when he's bad, he is bad. But normally he's going to fall in the middle there. He's going to have like 4 bad starts a year, but he's also going to have like 6 really good starts a year. Most of the time, he's in the middle. If he can get you 6 innings, 4 runs, I think that's a success. Our bullpen's one of our strengths this year, even with the kitchen injury. And I think they'll really make it competitive through the late innings with it. And Eflin's going to be a good starter.
I agree with you.
That's the one we can bet on. And if you're right in saying that Sugano is going to be good for 2 months, I think that's good enough because that gets you Grayson back. You get close enough to get Bradish back in July. Because, I mean, think about it this way. If you have Zach Eflin, Kyle Bradish, Grayson Rodriguez, Dean Kramer, Cade Povich, and Morton's a swingman instead, and Suarez maybe doesn't piece together for a second season, I think that's a really good starting rotation. If you get Bradish and Grayson back before the end of the year, before October, I think you have a decent shot going.
I think the key is Grayson healthy, and if Bradish is healthy going into September and October, and because they're going to keep his innings down. But if he's good and he's 90% of what he was before he got hurt, I think you have a real shot in the playoffs. I mean, I like that. I
Yeah.
like that team because both of them, I think Rodriguez and Bradish could be legit 1-2s.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. And I know Cody likes to compare almost every pitcher we have to Dylan Bundy just because he's supposed to be this amazing guy, doesn't turn out to be good. Think Grayson, we drafted him, and then what did Dylan Bundy get us? Dylan Bundy got us Kyle Bradish. That was from that trade. And so I really like Bradish. I mean, I saw one of his first starts as a pitcher. I didn't even know who he was when he first started. It was all the way. It was in St. Louis. This is me and Cody joke about it all the time. We saw the Cardinals play the Orioles. It's a great pitching matchup. Kyle Bradish, who no one really knew at the time, wasn't even that big of a prospect, but just a rookie against Packy Naughton of the Cardinals, who I think he's had 4 career starts ever. So, real competitive matchup there. But we can move on now. Like you said, we have Suarez maybe as more that swing man. How's the rest of our bullpen
I think
shape up?
you're looking your right-handed pitchers. You'll start with your closer in Felix Bautista. Then you've got your 8th inning guy, Yanair Cano, and then Sir Anthony Dominguez, Brian Baker, and then your left-handers are going to be Keegan Aiken, Perez, and Gregory Soto. I love their left-handers in the bullpen. I love their lefties. I think Aiken is a very, very tough left-hander. He last year I think he had a 3.3 ERA. He threw almost 80 innings. And he was really good. Their other 2 lefties, Perez and Soto, bring gas. Biggest issue you have with those 2 is control. When you come in, can you get the outs that you're supposed to get? Because really from the right side, Bautista was lights out. And I would assume he's going to be lights out again this year.
Yeah. And I think we all have to understand that it might take a week or 2. If he might have a blown start in the first week of the season, but you can't freak out. You have to understand. I mean, he just had Tommy John. He's been out for a full year. It's going to take him some time to get back into action to get consistently hit 102 miles an hour. But the mix with his fastball and his cutter and his changeup.
Oh yeah, and when as much as Hyde uses the bullpen, if any of these guys aren't to the level that I think they can be, that's where you start seeing the Orioles falter a little bit, because I don't know how much depth after these guys there is in the minors. I mean, you have Kittredge, who will be back at some point, but you're talking, what are they talking, 2 months? 2 to 3 months?
2 to 3 months, I think, which is, I mean, you think, oh, that doesn't sound too far. I mean, you're getting to the All-Star.
So, and then they got Matt Bowman in the that should be in the minors too, that they can always bring up. But you know, usually the Orioles go not as their closer goes. Yes, I mean, Krimble last year was an experience, but they go as that 6th or 7th inning guy goes, because that's when they run into, usually that starter comes out, and can you give me an inning or 2 to get me to that bridge to Cano and Bautista? And that's where it's going to be interesting looking at Baker, Suarez. You know, those 2 are going to be really, really interesting there. Yeah,
and I'm iffy about that part of our rotation right now. I feel like we have a really solid back end. It's more of the middle relievers, but this is still the most confident I felt about.
Oh yeah, I like the bullpen.
I mean, I think this has potential to be the best Orioles bullpen since, I mean, the Darren O'Day, Brad Brock, Zach Britton days.
Honestly, that's probably what it's lining up to look like. I mean, to have, I know, talking to Orioles fans and talking to Cody, Dominguez is not always on the highest, but he's got electric stuff. And control is an issue with him, leaving it over the middle of the plate, of course. But even like you take Soto, you take Perez, those guys have been closers. Those guys, Soto was a very accomplished closer at one point. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
so
with Detroit.
there is a lot of quality arms there. It's just going to be,
Yeah.
you know, can they get it figured out?
Yeah. I think you obviously have
Mhm.
Bautista's very set into his closer role, but like you said, what is the combination that's going to get it to
Yes.
work? And I think it could change every night, depending. Because if you have Aaron Judge and Giancarlo Stanton batting next to each other, if Stanton ever plays this year, I guess you're going to have a righty, obviously. But then, say you have, I don't know, what's a team that has a lot of, say you have Ohtani and Freeman back to back, I would still feel confident
Yes.
with CNL Perez going out there
Yeah.
and getting those outs in the 8th inning. I think we are going to be a closer by committee is a term that a lot of people use, but we're going to be more like setup by committee. That 7th and 8th inning, we have so many different people. We don't
Yeah.
need them to all click on the same night. I don't need Dominguez, Soto, Perez, and Cano to all be lights out the same day. It's more, can Cano be lights out these days, Soto the other days, Perez those days? Like, can they just map it out enough where they don't have their blow up days? Because that's what happened last year. I felt like is we would all blow up at the same time. If Cano had a
Oh,
bad
yeah.
game, Perez had a bad game. We just need to be able to limit the damage, and I think that's what we can do. I think this is going to be a very
I
good
think
bullpen.
you're spot on with that. I last year, as good as Craig Kimbrell was, and as bad as he was at the same time, you never ran into that year before with Batista. You knew when you got to the 9th,
Yeah,
it was lights out. Making that move 2 years ago, bringing in Cano, he was really a question mark when they brought him in the trade.
oh yeah. I mean, he had great stuff, but
And
could never
he's
throw a
kind of
strike.
locked
Never.
down. And last year, when he had to move kind of into that closer role some, he struggled a little bit with that. But I think
Oh, yeah.
he's much more comfortable in that 7th, 8th inning. And I like that setup. It's just going to be who's getting it to him consistently. I love Perez. If it's the Perez of 2 years ago, once he come back healthy last year, after he come off, they either sent him to the minors or he went to the IL. He was a different pitcher when he came back. He looked much better. So if you're getting that Perez of the Perez 2 years ago, that late season Perez, I like where they're at.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a really, really good spot for us. And with that, we can look for the future. We can really see how the next week or so of Orioles baseball is going to shape up. I mean, we got less than a week left of spring training. The Orioles are playing an exhibition game against the Nationals after the spring training ends. I believe that's in DC this year, and it's going to be something that they're doing for the next few years. And then we move into opening day. I mean, we're really looking forward to it. I know I'm excited. I don't care. I don't know what time we even play, but whether I'm in class or not, I'm going to be watching. I don't care.
Yeah.
I'll tell my professor that. That's how it was last year. I was sitting in class watching the first inning, watching Corbin Burns give up a home run.
Yeah.
Trout.
Everybody on opening day is, 0-0-0. It's just, I love opening day.
Yeah. But, I mean, we got Gunnar, who's seemingly healthy. That's great news. With all the injuries we have, we need we need it to really solidify. And with Gunnar, I mean, he take the next step this year? We can always hope for. Zach Eflin, he's our opening day starter this year, and I'm excited to see what he can do. He had a great playoff start. He did really good for us, other than when he got injured for a few weeks. But I'm really excited to see what he does.
Eflin, I think he's going to be consistent for you guys, and that's what they have to have. Gunnar, if he can make the jump like he did last year, and then even just squeak out a little more, he's an exciting. I mean, he's going to be the face of baseball. Him and Bobby Witt Jr. could be the face of baseball.
Yeah, easily. No, this is what I don't know if I've said it on the podcast before. I know I've told Cody. I truly believe Gunnar Henderson's going to be the next person that gets the mega Soto type contract. If you look at the near future, I mean, he's the only one that's not signed up because the Royals are smart and locked up Bobby Witt Jr. for $365 million or whatever they gave him a couple years ago before he was amazing. That's what the Orioles should have done, but we won't get into that today. Yeah. We won't get into contract talks. But I mean, even if he regresses, he could regress and he's still a top.
Yeah, I don't really see the regression. I just think he's too good of a baseball player, And I think he's got so much around him. I think that alone is going to help him. Because I don't think he's going to be in that leadoff spot this year. He may early, but I think he's going to probably hit in that 3 hole eventually, which for him, is what you want RBI wise. So it's going to be interesting. I don't know if Holiday, depending on how he hits, or Mullins ends up in that one spot.
Yeah. I mean, it could be either one of them. I mean, they both have speed. They both could piece together. It's going to be interesting to see. I mean, does Holiday put it together? We have all these question marks, and that's the beautiful thing about opening day and the new season. There's no answers. There's no true. I could come out here and say that I believe Ramon Urias is going to be better than Shohei Ohtani, and you can't completely tell me I'm wrong because there's no proof. And hey, opening day, Urias come out, hit a walk-off home run off the bench or something like that. Ohtani goes 0 for 4 with 3 strikeouts.
That's right. At that point in time, that's all that matters.
That's all that matters. But, well, thank you, everyone, for listening. I know it's been a good episode, an interesting episode. And yet again, no Cody. Like I said earlier, you're probably glad to be watching this without his face all the time. I know if you're like me, you might get tired of it. And he's probably going to cut all this out anyway if he edits this. So you might not even hear me say this. But, yeah, thank you guys for listening. It's been great. See ya.